The rain hadn't let up for hours. The streets shimmered under the city lights, slick with the kind of cold that seeps through fur and skin alike. On the edge of a quiet neighborhood, curled under a rotting piece of plywood wedged behind a dumpster, a small beagle lay trembling. Her fur was matted, a patch of it crusted with something she had rolled into during her desperate search for warmth. Her eyes, round and glassy, darted at every passing sound, flinching with each honk, each bark, each shift of wind. Her whole body quivered not from the cold alone, but from the memory of hands that once fed her and then abandoned her. The echo of car tires rolling away without ever returning. No one knew exactly how long she had been there. Neighbors had caught glimpses. Some thought she belonged to someone else. Others assumed she would leave, but she stayed. Day after day, shaking. She didn't bark, didn't whimper, just shook as if the world around her buzzed with a frequency only she could feel, one built on betrayal, hunger, and isolation. The rain masked her scent, but a stray cat that visited the area for scraps began avoiding the corner she'd claimed. It was as if even other animals sensed the fragile stillness clinging to her like frost. It wasn't until a little boy named Owen wandered too close, chasing a red balloon that had slipped from his hand, that anyone saw her fully. The balloon bobbed against the dumpster, and as Owen leaned down, he saw two wide brown eyes staring up at him from the shadows. They didn't blink. They didn't threaten. They just watched. A moment passed, 10 seconds that felt like an hour, and Owen whispered, "Are you okay?" His mother called for him from the sidewalk. He turned and pointed. "Mom, there's a dog." His mother, a social worker named Elise, approached cautiously. At first, she didn't see anything. Then the beagle moved, just slightly, the plywood scraping as her fragile form shifted to stay hidden. Elise crouched low and offered a hand, not to pet, just to show it was empty. "Hey sweetheart," she said gently, "you don't have to come out. Just letting you know someone's here." The beagle didn't move, but her eyes flickered, as if something distant stirred. Elise didn't try to coax her out. She returned the next morning, then the next. Always with fresh chicken, warm broth, soft words. The beagle remained in her damp fortress, never touching the food until Elise left. But little by little, the shaking grew less violent. By the 5th day, the beagle had edged forward, her paw touching the sidewalk like it might vanish under her weight. Elise didn't move. She simply smiled. When the beagle was finally coaxed into a crate voluntarily, after 3 weeks she weighed less than half what she should. Her ribs stood out like branches. Her ears were torn, likely from fights she hadn't asked for. But what disturbed Elise the most was that even indoors, safe, fed, and dry, the beagle didn't stop trembling. The vet found no neurological cause, no physical damage beyond what was already visible. It was trauma, pure and simple, etched into the dog's nervous system like a scar. Elise named her Clover, hoping luck would follow. At home, Clover didn't bark, didn't play, didn't react to toys, treats, or even affection. She walked in slow, deliberate steps, flinching at every sound, every sudden movement, every sigh. The shaking never fully stopped, even in sleep. Her legs would twitch and her body would jerk, as though chased by memories she couldn't outrun. Owen wanted to help. He'd sit beside her crate reading stories about dragons and forests and invisible cities in the clouds. He'd leave her hand-drawn pictures of bones and stick figures holding paws. Sometimes he'd place his small blanket over the crate so she could feel what warm felt like again. Elise noticed Clover would inch closer to the front of the crate when Owen was near. One evening, she caught Clover watching him, not in fear, but with something that almost resembled longing. That was the first moment Elise felt hope. It was a few days later, during a quiet Sunday morning, when it happened. Owen had gotten up early, sneaking into the living room in his dinosaur pajamas to watch cartoons. He passed by Clover's crate, whispered a soft good morning, and sat cross-legged in front of the TV. 10 minutes in, Elise, just out of bed, came into the room and froze. Clover was out of the crate. Not just out. She was curled up next to Owen, her body pressed against his side. The shaking was still there, but it had softened, pulsing like a distant hum rather than a storm. Owen noticed her and grinned. "She likes this show," he said matter-of-factly, as if it had been like this forever. From that day on, Clover began to change, but only around Owen. She'd follow him to the kitchen, sit beside him during meals, wait at the foot of his bed until he invited her up. Elise started documenting it in short video clips: Clover's first tail wag, her first attempt at a play bow, her first time barking when the doorbell rang. All of it happened with Owen present, his voice the only one she truly trusted. When others came over, she'd retreat to her crate or a corner behind the couch. But with Owen, she was different. Like she remembered something soft, something worth holding on to. One afternoon, Elise invited a behaviorist to observe. The expert watched Clover with Owen and shook her head in amazement. "This isn't just bonding," she said. "This is imprinting. That boy isn't just her favorite person. To her, he's family in the most primal way possible." That word family stuck with Elise, because for all Clover had lost, she had found her way back to that one concept she needed the most. Not just safety, not just routine, but a connection. Months passed. Clover began sleeping through the night without trembling. Her appetite returned, her fur grew glossy again. But she still didn't respond much to adults. Elise respected that. It was Owen who brought the sparkle back to her eyes. On his 8th birthday, as he sat surrounded by cake and presents, Clover surprised everyone. She stood on her hind legs and rested her front paws on his lap. It wasn't a trick. No one had taught her, but it was her first spontaneous act of affection. Like she knew that day was special. Clover and Owen became inseparable. At school pickup, she'd wait by the door, tail thumping against the floor as the bus rumbled into the neighborhood. She'd run to greet him, spinning in small, excited circles. Every weekend, they'd go exploring woods, creeks, parks, anywhere the two could roam together. Owen once whispered to her, "You're my best friend, even though you don't talk," and she responded with a soft nuzzle under his chin that made Elise tear up quietly in the kitchen. As winter approached, Elise reflected on how far Clover had come. From a shaking, silent shadow behind a dumpster to a vibrant soul stitched into the heart of their home. The cold no longer haunted her, the silence no longer trapped her, and the world, once a blur of fear and confusion, had begun to make sense again because of one small boy who never saw her as broken, only waiting. One snowy evening, as Owen slept with Clover curled at his feet, Elise wrote down the story for a rescue blog, ending with, "She didn't need everyone to love her. She just needed one person who did. And now, she doesn't shake anymore. Because sometimes, healing isn't loud. It doesn't always come from doctors or trainers or medicines. Sometimes, it walks in slowly, wearing cartoon pajamas, carrying a red balloon, and sits quietly beside you until you believe in the world again."